Good morning again. Welcome at DPW 2024 here in Amsterdam, and I'm really excited to have Christian here in the room today, and we'll talk about his journey and Carbmee as well, as he is the co-founder and MD of Carbmee. Christian, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here today in Amsterdam, and always a pleasure to speak at DPW.
Exciting, and it's the first time we've met, right?
Yes, first time.
We just did our first introduction.
Even if I have been here very often already, to be honest. Also during the COVID virtual sessions.
The online
first
version.
Time we meet each other, yes. Yeah.
But you started here in 2019 then? So the first one?
I started with another company, yes.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Carbmee, yes. I started with Scoutbee, and Carbmee we have started 3.5 years ago. So we had first time our interaction from a Carbmee perspective with the DPW during COVID. Yeah,
yeah, the online...
I know Matthias already since 5 years plus, yeah.
Ah, great. And how's your experience so far this year?
Always brilliant. Honestly speaking, it's improving year by year at DPW. For me, the most important thing, and I have to confess, I did not attend too many sessions from the presentations because I had so many good networking contacts, and I was chatting with other co-founders, I was chatting with clients, also with tech investors, also with, I call them influencers.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
All the brilliant researchers are here, so it's really
also present.
I could stay until Saturday, to be honest, but I have to leave tonight already.
Okay. Hey, and is it something we should solve? Because I know there's a lot of content, right? The stages, but also the network and the opportunity.
It's a question.
How do we go about that?
That's a good one. I mean, one thing would be to extend it for another day, but I don't think that you can make it. Also from the capabilities from the others. No, I think it's pretty cool like it is like today, and it's up to me if I'm visiting the presentations or I'm rather focusing on the conversations.
Yes.
So from my perspective, it's brilliant, and just keep going like that.
Yeah. Okay, we will. Thank you. Can you share a bit for the audience and myself as well, because we just meet each other here, right? A bit of your background. You're in ProcureTech for a longer period. You're now with Carbmee, but let's go a couple of years back.
Okay. Yeah. That's long. So
you're a professor as well.
I am a professor in supply chain management and digitization. So, but this is part-time job, I would say. It's just MBA teaching.
Okay.
And it's basically, it's in Berlin at a Quadriga University MBA program. And I started that 2016 because I got appointed to become the professor. Nevertheless, right now, to be honest, I have only 5 days per year, and this is a Saturday and Sunday program because I just simply do not have more time.
No, because you have a company and a private life.
Exactly,
I guess.
Some private life right now, and this is why I changed that. I think 5 years ago I had 30 days or something like that, and this was almost every weekend.
Yeah.
And right now I reduced it to 4 or 5 days. Focus is completely on Carbmee. Yeah. And I started in procurement 2009 with a German procurement consultancy called Kerkhoff, headquartered in Düsseldorf, where I really learned and what is global sourcing, how do you do the RFPs, what is decentral and central procurement, what does category management mean, what is APC XYZ analysis, and all that basic stuff. Everybody of the practitioners are doing it every day.
Yes.
And I learned that, and then I was spending 5 years with BASF. This was more supply chain management stuff, where we rolled out demand planning, supply chain planning, S&OP planning from SAP. And this was a massive project because it was across 500 plants globally, Asia, North America, South America. It was really great.
Yeah.
And this took also very long. You start with demand planning, go to supply planning, then S&OP planning. So I was always in this kind of industrial supply chain topic with software, how to automate business processes.
Yeah.
And after that, I co-founded together with Gregor and the team Scoutbee.
Why?
So this was AI-based procurement.
What problem were you solving?
Pretty simple, basically. It was supplier search.
Yeah.
So everybody is using Google for a B2C purpose, but the Google engine does not work for B2B purposes because you have the technical specifications and all the complexity.
Yeah.
And we just tried to go step by step via different categories and improve it based on algorithms to support the procurement experts with help here.
And what year was that you founded Scoutbee?
2015, if I remember
so
back.
that's 6 years after you started working in procurement.
Yes, I started 2009, and then
And you stepped out a corporate career, right? In procurement, understanding, learning procurement, BASF, big company, large organization, corporate life. And then you said, okay, I'm stepping into uncertainty.
Yeah. I was young enough and maybe flexible enough and had no liabilities, hungry. And also it was pretty simple, to be honest, because I did the consultancy 1 year, then I did BASF together with consultants. So it was a project with Accenture, with Deloitte, you name it, PwC, North America, multi-project management. And then it was the decision, should I go with BASF right now to Hong Kong or Singapore as an expat? Super cool life, nice salary. My father would have been proud on me, to be honest. He said, what the heck are you doing right now? Why are you going into this kind of self-employment? And you call it startup, but at the end, it's also super crazy.
You choose entrepreneurship.
We did it,
Yeah. And how do you look back at the period to Scoutbee? What maybe is the biggest learning of raising a company in the procurement domain that was maybe not mature yet for tech, or?
No. They are still doing pretty good. It was just, we have been 4 co-founders at the end, and then you have some different opinions, and that was also a fair thing, and we just said, okay, you continue that, and feel free, and have a lot of fun and success. Yeah. But the first 5 years have been super intense and super challenging. We also started the US expansion, and it was also, I mean, if you are innovative, that's a little bit a chicken egg problem. You're always ahead of the market because otherwise you would not be innovative. And you need always to translate it into normal business operations, business practices. And this is also what I did at Scoutbee. And also the main thing what we do with Carbmee, basically educate the market, leverage this education thing via the consultancies because they are the intermediate layer, let's say. And then if you are 2 years ahead, for example, you can bridge those 2 years. And then you know, okay, this is the market readiness. And this is also what we see with Carbmee. We started 3.5 years ago with Scope 3. Everybody said, what the heck is Scope 3? Oh, no, even those guys who knew it already, I do not want to know it because it's a lot of work and it's pain in the ass, to be honest. But right now they are on that level that they say, okay, we need to reduce that stuff and we need to do it. And it was 3 years ago.
And understand that stuff as well. And have a basic, okay. So, and why Carbmee? Because we will talk about Carbmee and what, well, basically what your solution is. But when did it start? So you woke up one day and then?
I woke up. It was summer, and it was summer in Berlin. And my co-founder Robin Speakers worked also in the industry, and he is coming from the life cycle assessment perspective. So that's LCA. So he knew already what Scope 1 to 3 is, and he worked in an industry company where he said, "Okay, Christian, there is a Scope 3 challenge." I said, "What the heck is Scope 3? I am a supply chain expert, procurement expert, maybe also software expert, B2B." But I didn't knew that. And then he explained me, look, there's something everybody right now is starting to talk about sustainability 4 years ago. But the real challenge of production and manufacturing oriented companies will be the Scope 3 thing. We call it internally 80% challenge because in the average manufacturing companies have 80% of the emissions in Scope 3. Some even 90, some 60. And this is interesting. And then he also convinced me and said, the only company who can deliver a nice software for that has to have co-founders from 2 perspectives. Not only this LCA and environmental stuff, because then you are developing a product which cannot be used from practitioners like the procurement guys. And if you do not know how their daily processes look like, so the negotiation trigger points, you will always end up with a nice dashboard and a questionnaire-based approach. And this is how we changed it. So basically we created something, I always translate it, it's a purchase to pay process, something like that. We linked the finance guys with procurement, but just with GHG emissions. And we can then transactionally calculate supplier carbon footprints without sending out questionnaires. And this is basically the magic.
And for the audience, maybe to take one step back, when we talk about Scope 3 and the challenge there, the supplier data and the footprint, and how do you retrieve the data, right? And you mentioned already questionnaire-based, there are other methodologies, right? But maybe can you explain a bit on that, what the challenge is on the supplier data in Scope 3? Why is it a challenge?
It's a great one. So first of all, everybody started talking about sustainability and ESG. There are 3 things, E, S, and G. I would say the S and the G part is a little bit correlated with the Supply Chain Act topics and diversity
especially
topics.
in Germany, the German Supply Chain Act.
And the E thing is the GHG emissions thing. And then the E thing also means, there is a new currency in place. Some companies already have internal carbon prices between 50 euros and 150 euros per ton in order to already also calculate their carbon accounting from the top level. And they have committed sometimes on science-based target initiatives, sometimes
SBTi.
on SBTi or decarbonization strategies. They had brilliant programs on the top level from the consultancies last years. In the average, they have to reduce 30% of the emissions until 2030.
Yeah.
So then you come to next level. Okay, what does that mean? And if I have then, for example, 60, 70, 80 or 90% in scope 3, which is caused from the purchased materials, sometimes
Yes.
also energy,
Yeah.
and a little bit of logistics. Very often logistics is only 5%, and the biggest portion is the purchased goods and
Yes.
material.
Yeah.
Then you come to the conclusion, okay, right now the chief procurement officers are responsible reducing that, get that also as a bonus incentivation. This is the beginning right now. And I do not even talk about regulations like CBAM or something like
Okay.
that. Just purely from the decarbonization strategy,
Yeah.
which is anchored in the corporate strategy because of the company valuation. And then you derive it down. And then the first challenge is, how do I get a baseline which I can trust in? And if you do that spend-based on a very high aggregated level, you have an inaccurate number of plus or minus 30%. And you remember,
Okay.
if you have to reduce 30%, and we are all engineering companies, and you have an inaccurate number of 30%, you cannot start even working on that. And we directly start with an activity-based calculation and then empower the procurement team to reduce that in the second level after having achieved the transparency with a supplier-specific supplier collaboration methodology.
If you look at the scope 3 data, right, is it the challenge how to retrieve the data from the suppliers? Or is it that suppliers are now overwhelmed by all their buyers? Is there any data, and do it in different ways as well?
Let's go one step back.
Yes.
So first thing is that chief procurement officers have the conversations with the chief sustainability officers.
Here we go.
Where is our baseline? Then the chief sustainability officer said, we have estimated with our consultancy that you are purchasing X amount in steel, X amount in plastics, and we have multiplied that with an emission factor.
Yeah.
So that's not granular. That's just, let's assume you have 30 million spent in steel. They just multiply the 30 million with one emission factor. They don't differentiate between the different kind of steels. Maybe that's already green steel, so you are better than you think. And what we
already
do,
differentiate
exactly what we do, we connect to the ERP systems, extract the relevant bill of material, purchasing and finance data, do a matchmaking with emission factors on a super bottom-up transactional level. And let's imagine you have 10,000 suppliers, then you have maybe 200,000 purchasing transactions per year. And we can, within days, really days, calculate without outreaching to any supplier, the supplier carbon footprint on activity-based level. So this is something human beings cannot do.
So you start in those large organizations first.
Yes.
Access to the
Without
data.
outreaching to any supplier. And then you
Okay.
have already activity-based data, which is 30% more accurate than this other methodology. And then you have a baseline. We always call it transparency phase. Having done that, you start doing the segmentation. Who are my A hotspots? Who are my B hotspots, like the ABC, XYZ thing? And then you can outreach to the first A hotspots. You will let them know, look, there's coming an invite to a portal where you have to either confirm the pre-calculated supplier carbon footprint, because you have small suppliers, they have zero clue what we are talking about.
Yeah.
They are happy.
Yeah.
And this calculation is done based on an auditable level. So it's not something we think or something like that. It's based on GHG, GRI, PACT, TÜV certification. And it can be also audited from the big accounting companies, which is already done. So you then send the invite and you start the reduction process, because they not only can confirm it, so other bigger players already knew, oh, it's an unfair advantage if I outperform, because if I can deliver an eco-friendly product to my customer, I will be the preferred supplier. So this is basically the trigger with our process which we are implementing. And it's a complete different thing compared to this questionnaire-based, and I have a response rate of 18%, and I have to do my work. I have no clue who is responding what, how did he or she calculate it, and this is the big change.
And is this change in this methodology, is that your competitive advantage?
Definitely from a procurement perspective.
Yeah.
But there's another one,
Okay.
because you need to automate that. As I mentioned in the beginning, let's assume that's the big difference between a dashboard or a questionnaire. You need to create this process which empowers you to enrich the activity-based data with primary data and secondary data, and with overwriting mechanisms, and behind everything is a calculation engine. It's almost like in a production planning system when you replan your production plan in every 10 minutes or something like that. So this is basically the workflow which is automated, and then we have the data model which helps us to do that fast. But the other thing is we have created the EIS, that's the Environmental Intelligence System, which consists of 4 modules. And this was just one module made for the procurement experts, which is the supply chain module. But this is also connected to the product carbon footprint module, which empowers companies to connect this supply chain improvements with better sourcing processes of eco-friendly material to connect it for the eco-friendly product design process, so they can use it for scenario planning in order to improve their products with the best purchasing methodology.
Yeah. So who are your stakeholders in a large organization?
So for Scope 3, it's clearly procurement. They already built out sustainable procurement.
So clearly procurement, but I also see in here organizations, they have sustainability teams, right?
Yeah. It's a tandem. Because right now we see...
It's a tandem.
Yeah, we see that the discussion is like that. The sustainability teams will never be responsible to reduce the Scope 3 because they also have no chance to do the negotiations with the suppliers and to trigger them. So it's basically that the sustainability teams have to provide a solution for the procurement leaders and the category managers that they can operate in that without becoming sustainability experts, because no procurement expert can become a life cycle or environmental engineer. This is then done from our calculation. So basically procurement experts only need this figure, which is calculated on the methodologies which are auditable and which can be controlled on a high level, steering dashboard level from the sustainability teams. And the sustainability teams are also connected to finance because they need it, for example, for CSRD, for carbon accounting, for the annual reporting. But they need to have the Scope 3 figures which are right and not with the inaccuracy of 30%, because also for SPTI you need to show improvements year by year, and you will never be able to do any improvement if you don't have the right baseline for Scope 3. And in the middle, there's the product engineering teams for the product carbon footprints. That's the third group, plus the CBAM guys. So that's more or less the supply chain logistics guys. They are responsible for the carbon border adjustment mechanism, because our primary data mechanism can be applied also for CBAM.
So I'm counting 4 or 5?
4 module.
4.
4.
Who's your buyer?
50% is procurement, 25% is sustainability and LCA experts and productions, 25% is finance.
Okay. Interesting.
According to the modules.
Yeah, of course.
We are
because
coming from bottom up. Also, our
based,
go-to-market is pretty clear. We are coming from bottom up because we are coming from the granular data. And we see also the increase of the finance guys because they realize, oh, you need the granular data.
And has that market approach always been there from day one, or is it something you learned along the day
4
one?
years, day one. And 4 years ago, everybody said, are you completely stupid? Why are you starting with the most complex stuff in complex supply chains? And then we said, because we know that this is necessary and this will come. It took some time. Also, the colleagues from Gartner or Verdantix right now are on that level that they understand, oh, we need to carve out something out of the whole sustainability EHS thing. And this is a new category, which is carbon management. I think Gartner released this year in January, first time, the carbon market guide for carbon management software, which is going exactly into that direction. And I also have to say, our software is ideal for companies with a high Scope 3. If you have 3%, 5%, 10% in Scope 3, you may use other things or maybe also do it manually. But if you have a transactional Scope 3 reduction challenge, then we are, especially for industrial players, currently the best players in the market.
If you go back those years now with Carbmee, what did you learn along the way?
That it's super important that the market maturity needed to increase. But I mean, I learned that because we have seen that.
Yeah. And where's the market maturity today?
I would say the mass market readiness for our product is 2025, 2026.
Okay.
So last year we had the pioneers, the first movers. This year we had the fast followers.
Okay.
Next year it's beginning, especially for companies who are already mature enough from the size. So let's say 500 million revenue plus. I think then the smaller market below 500 million, they are moving into this EIS system logic 2026 because they are still kind of overwhelmed with carbon accounting and CSRD reporting. They think they need it only for reporting purposes, but then they will realize in 2 years, oh, I need to optimize it, not just to report because there's some tax on it.
Understood. So that's one learning. Other learnings over those 4 years?
It's all about knowledge of the industry and the domain. You cannot build such a software if you cannot differentiate, for example, automotive industry versus a chemical industry. So bill of material versus receipts, because it's super production and supply chain driven. And if you don't understand what are the requirements in the procurement teams and the production teams, you have zero chance. And you need to have this kind of knowledge in the whole company, in our whole company. It does not help if it's just in the product team who are developing the product, because also the market-facing teams, they all need to talk the language to pick up our customers where they are and to translate basically the environmental topics into their daily business. Because at the end of the day, no one has a clue because everything is completely new, and this is totally fine.
So we talked about your journey a bit, about Scoutbee, Carbmee. We're here today at DPW still, the maturity of the market. If you look at the maturity of the market, and for example, you mentioned, of course, the Gartner in the carbon management landscape, if you will. How's this market, the technology market for ESG solutions, sustainability solutions, I don't know what to call it, right? Maybe you can help me out here. What's the category name here?
It's good. So it's fragmented, and
yes.
But it's also, we have seen already a consolidation, to be honest.
Okay.
So 2021, we had a ton of startups, and everybody said, okay, I can do ESG and sustainability.
Yeah.
Then this cleaned up a little bit in the last 2 or 3 years. We saw, okay, sustainability broad is basically then at the end very often just a dashboard. And then you need to type in the figures, then you see it.
Yeah.
To be honest, this can be also done by Power BI. It's a question, do you need this? Or if you just use it internally for branding purposes, I have an ESG tool or something like that. I do not want to say that they are useless or something like that, but they are usually not that deep tech and have the opportunity to really drill it down and do the disaggregation. Then there are other things, what we still see, and what also the market feedback is coming in. We differentiate right now very holistic EHS tools who also support you for various compliance topics, environmental health and safety issues, also the ISO certification topics, etc. Then we see the Supply Chain Act tools, and they are right now merging with risk management tools. So it's a little bit right now really going together, risk management and Supply Chain Act. I don't think there are many tools who are doing risk management without doing Supply Chain Act. Yeah. And then we see this new category of carbon management coming out. Here we are still at the beginning, to be honest, because there's still a lot of noise and unclarity. If you need, and this is what we do, you need something like an ERP system for carbon management because you have the different stakeholders in the company. Yeah. But we in the supply chain mainly talk about scope 3. But if you don't connect scope 3 to the finance guys, scope 1 and 2, it's still isolated. Yeah. So we will also see here a consolidation. Do I think that there will be one big solution solving all sustainability topics? I can clearly say no, also not in 10 years. Okay. Because let's take
complexity.
Let's take SAP as an example. Why does Salesforce exist, and why doesn't also have SAP a nice CRM system which is better than Salesforce or HubSpot? And this why did SAP buy or acquire Ariba? Because obviously it was not good enough to have this own SRM tool. Yeah. So that's also how I see it. So I think it's kind of a myth to think it's the same myth with the end-to-end transparency in supply chains will never exist. There will not be the one thing. What people should do, requirements engineering, what is important for me is Supply Chain Act, what I see in 80% of the cases, and it's carbon management. Yeah. And this is basically, and then you can make a Power BI based dashboard. That's my recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. What would your advice be to companies? You said your recommendation, but my assumption also is here they struggle with what questions or what problem are we solving in our company, right?
And it's definitely not easy for them because almost everybody is putting on the website, we can do sustainability, we can do scope 1, 2, 3.
But if you map it out, right, and do a workshop with your customer and say, okay, what's the problem here? I guess when you start the conversation, they think the problem is A, but at the end of the day, it's a totally different problem, right?
We saw that this year quite often. They started with an RFP for a holistic ESG solution. 3 months later, they realized, okay, I think there have been 250 requirements criteria in. I said, what criteria is transactional? Yeah. So what kind of information do you need in a repetitive manner? Yeah. And what is just a once in a year thing? Because the once in a year thing, therefore you don't need the software, to be honest. You can either do that manually or with an external consultant from a nice consultancy. Yeah. But what kind of things need to be optimized, reduced? Which things do you need to integrate? So that's the tech question. And the business purpose question, that's usually the first question I ask. What is material? What is also, if you do the double materiality analysis, it's very often ESRS E and the S. The S is the social thing, governance. And then you have to have the E. And if you have to do the social things and you can, for example, solve it already with nice supply chain due diligence software solutions, then this is one thing which you need to solve. Many of them have done that already, last year and the year before. And if the second big problem is, if you are a production-oriented company, you have a carbon management issue, then you need to think about, is scope 3 a material and very relevant for me? Then you need to search for a solution who can solve the scope 3 issue. And honestly, all the other topics are not relevant anymore, because if your solution cannot double down in scope 3, you will not solve your biggest problem.
Yeah. And speaking of those RFPs, right, and the methodology to go to market and understand what solution is out there and can help me in the stage of where the market is, right, and it's evolving, it's uncertain still, it's unknown. Is it the right methodology then, or would you advise to go to market differently?
I just quote Miguel Cosio, the Gartner analyst, because he made a nice presentation in Barcelona in June this year, where he advised, based on his learnings, the market, how should you behave? First of all, you need to start doing something, and then rather land and expand, and rather try something out. And don't make a highly sophisticated, holistic ESG RFP or sustainability RFP, because you need usually more than one solution to solve it. And this is already the issue. If you think you find one solution covering everything, you end up in a mess, because mainly the biggest challenge cannot be solved. So really think in this requirement engineering perspective, identify 2 or 3 things, and then have rather 2 or 3 tools. And if you then realize, okay, I can combine right now one thing with the other, then you can also throw out the other tool. But waiting for one, it's also too risky.
Interesting, and also from perspective, right? If you do corporate startup collaborations, start small, do your iterations there, but also I just spoke with Lalita from Oro and Romain from Pivot. Also, they say, hey guys, in procurement and tech, come on, let's do this approach rather than the big bangs. They don't work anymore. And also, when you want to learn and understand, is there a problem-solution fit, but also a cultural fit between organizations? It's a different approach.
It's a good thing. So some of our customers give me also the feedback that they could save a lot of consultancy money, because they just have learned a lot about sustainable procurement and how can I use the carbon topics with the negotiation, just using out of our system, because then it became super clear to make, for example, scenario analyses to compare different materials and suppliers, and it became super obvious. So they did not even do this education thing and hire another consultancy to educate someone. In some other cases, it's necessary to onboard, let's say, the 200 procurement experts from a train-the-trainer perspective. But the main feedback is really start with a small team, sustainable procurement, focus on 2 or 3 main categories, which are the hotspots, and then roll it out to the other 10 categories. And this is basically it.
If you zoom out, right, you started in 2009 working with procurement. I did in 2005, I believe. And we're now in 2024. And if we look through the lens of technology, right, where are we today and what's going to happen in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. So I think when we started, we had still this e-procurement and SRM solution thing. And then I also was in this wave of supply chain planning tools. There have been names in the market of incumbents which are not even there anymore, to be honest. And I did SNOP planning and all that stuff. I had to do the software requirements analysis together with consultancy for BASF, for example, was super fun. Then the ProcureTech wave, and I also, guys like Lance Younger are doing great jobs. The Spend Matter guys are doing really super cool.
Jason.
Yeah, exactly. Jason's also here. And I also had many touch points with Nick Heinzmann right now.
It's Zip.
It's also, that's basically the ecosystem. And just thinking a little bit back, this was a massive jump. I would say beginning 2015, 16, 17, also with Scoutbee in Germany, we kicked off a wave of new startups coming in, but not only us, also logistics and supply chain moved up. Right now we see the map. Also Eloise Epstein is doing this nice spider diagram. She's also here. And you have everybody in Amsterdam at DPW. And what I think is there will always be a kind of a consolidation. So some smaller players are going out. I also see big M&A and private equity companies are doing some similar things they did with Jagger, for example. Bravo Solutions, Pull for Tool all together. We see this trend. So this is one thing. And I see also that there will never be a one-size-fits-all. I can only give this clear advice. Focus on the important things, and then start small. But it will never be the case that you have one big system which is solving all things. You need to be a little bit like an app store marketplace, but also don't do it too much, because you cannot manage 15 plus applications in your procurement team because everybody will go crazy. Really focus on the right one. I think we will see that in the next 5 years, this trend.
What's ahead for Carbmee in the next year?
That's a great one. So we have already a few customers in the US, a handful, I would say.
Okay.
And we are planning to establish the US operations. I mean, it's not yet clear if it's Q1 or Q2. I am going to Asia in 3 weeks, so Tokyo, Shanghai, and Singapore, because we have such a strong demand. So I'm collaborating here with TÜV, that they support us in China, because you need to get out the data also from China without having the server issues. Nevertheless, there's a strong push to Asia from a supplier side perspective, and from America from the OEM perspective. So that's the market perspective. But we have already implemented, I have seen it in the beta version, some nice reduction recommendation engines, Gen AI based, and also what we call Studio. You can then have interactive dashboards where you just type something in, and then you can do your scenario-based analysis. So that's basically like a genius which is next to you, and you just ask them, how can I behave in that case, and then you get a response. So that's pretty cool.
And then final one then, those 3 continents, right? Regions.
Yeah.
How do you split yourself up? What will happen to your company?
Yeah, we are ramping up the team. So right now we are 55 roundabout, plus minus. And I have very good conversations. I think it's an advantage being since 2009 in the industry. I know who did something already, who has seen something already, in which area, in which region. I have a super cool team. So we all together. Without my team, I would be nothing, to be honest. And that's my main advice. If you want to scale fast, you need to delegate fast, and you need to trust in your people. And honestly speaking, I think I am the worst expert in the whole company, because all the others are doing way better than me. And that's how it's
key
possible.
priority.
Always. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you for the first time, having this conversation here at DPW. And wish you good luck with Carbmee.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you to the audience. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being at DPW 24. Stay on our channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere basically. And thanks for this very interesting conversation.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure, and have fun at DPW. Thanks a lot.
Will. Cheers.